It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. You're listening to us in your neighborhood from coast to coast and around the world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joan Herman, author, speaker, and your host. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me is Dr. Lissa Rankin, who is here to discuss how fear and disease are linked and how fear can predispose one to illness and interrupt the healing process. Dr. Rankin is a New York Times bestselling author of Mind Over Medicine, Scientific Proof That You Can Heal Yourself, and the new book, The Fear Cure. Welcome, Dr. Rankin. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Joan. I'm so happy to be here.
Dr. Rankin, when we think of fear, we usually equate it to an emotion that holds us back in our personal or professional life. But you say that fear is so much more than that. So in addition to being something that keeps us stuck, what impact does fear have on our life?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we have a really funny relationship with fear. A lot of people don't even realize how much it's dictating their life and making their decisions for them. We call it stress, sort of normalized it. Like stress is this thing that we wear like a badge of honor. Like I'm stressed, therefore I'm a valuable, productive member of society doing good, important things and making myself feel worthy. And the reality is that a lot of the stress that we feel is really based on fear. And, for example, if we say I'm stressed at work, well, really I'm afraid that I'm going to underperform and lose my stable income. Or I'm afraid that I'm going to, make a mistake and one of my clients is going to be harmed. I mean, certainly as a doctor, that was one of my big stressors. We say we're stressed in our relationships, but really we're terrified of being abandoned or of losing somebody that we love or of having one of our children get harmed. And so we wind up kind of creating this hypervigilance in the mind where we're constantly trying to protect life. And, you see this, if you spend any time in meditation, as I do, I notice that monkey mind that is constantly thinking and planning and trying to anticipate potential future dangers so that it can come up with solutions to try to protect me from experiencing something I don't want to experience or trying to help me get something that I do want. And that grasping at certainty, that grasping at the desire for protection creates these chronic repetitive stress responses in the body. And what I wrote about in my book, Mind Over Medicine, is that, the body has natural self-healing mechanisms. We know this. They teach us this in medical school. It's in our physiology textbooks that every day we make cancer cells. And every day we're exposed to a whole variety of pathogens that could make us sick. And every day we have broken proteins and, sort of mistakes in our DNA. And this all gets repaired if the body is in a functioning self-repair state. But one of the things that people don't talk about much is that emotions like fear can trigger that stress response. And every time the body is in the fight or flight stress response, physiologically, which is the sympathetic nervous system, that high cortisol, high epinephrine state of physiologic stress, every time the body is in that state, the body's natural self-healing mechanisms get turned off. And I want to say that again because people don't really realize every time we have a stressed or fearful thought, we trigger, the amygdala in the brain triggers a stress response that affects the entire body and turns off the body's natural self-repair mechanisms. So fortunately, the body has a natural homeostatic state, which is called the relaxation response or the parasympathetic nervous system. And whenever the body is in parasympathetic nervous system, then those self-healing mechanisms are operating properly. So after I wrote Mind Over Medicine, I realized that there was sort of a piece missing, something that I hadn't really fully investigated. And I had this theory that fear, that there might be data, because Mind Over Medicine is sort of, it's a book for people like me, sort of intuitively sensed that there was a link between our emotional well-being and our physical health, but really wanted the data. So it's all the grounded scientific data. But I hadn't really gone into specifically the link between fear and disease. So I kind of made a deep dive back into the mainstream medical literature, the New England Journal of Medicine, the Journal of the American Medical Association, trying to see, is there a link between fear and heart disease, or fear and cancer, or fear and autoimmune diseases, or fear and the common cold? And it turns out there's tons of data. So the first couple of chapters of The Fear Cure are all about my research and all of the significant data. I mean, it's not subtle. It's not subtle. The state of being in fear is killing us. And I wrote those first 2 chapters, and then it took me 2 more years to write anything else, because after I wrote that, I thought, oh my God, now I've just made everybody more terrified, and I don't know what to do. I'm a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a spiritual teacher. Like, what am I going to say? What's the solution? And so it was quite a journey for me writing this book.
Lissa, all of the science that you're talking about, all the things that happen to us physically, when we live in this constant state of fear and experience the things that you just mentioned, is this the result of living with a scarcity mentality?
I think that's a huge part of it. It's really, Joan, it's really about our cultural worldview. And I didn't, it's funny, I got the perfect validation of this book, because I was very hesitant about writing this book. I felt like I was in over my head. And I actually tried to give my advance back to my publisher. I said, I am not the person to write this book. This was a great idea, but I should not be doing this. And they kept saying, you're the perfect person to write this book. Every time I talk to you, I feel less afraid. So I kept going back to it. But I had just finished writing the final draft of the final manuscript of The Fear Cure when 2 weeks later I went to 16,000 feet in the Andes in Peru. And I was staying in a hut with 10 people in a Quero village with these indigenous people of Peru that have been isolated from Western culture for 500 years. And I was there because I'm researching a future book called Sacred Medicine, where I'm studying anomalous healing, these sort of spontaneous healings that happen with shamans and qigong masters and energy healers. And I'm, as a doctor, I'm very curious, like, what is that? So I was up there with these shamans, and I realized by witnessing and experiencing and living among their culture that they do not have the worldview that we do. They, by all means, have every reason to be more afraid than we do, and they're not. They don't live the way we do, and it's simply because of their worldview. And we have a worldview in Western culture. In The Fear Cure, I called it the 4 fearful assumptions. We make these assumptions. We say uncertainty is unsafe, so I need to guard against uncertainty at all costs. Can't handle uncertainty, so I need to do everything I can to make my life certain. The second one is I can't handle losing what I cherish. So I've got to do everything I can to protect what I cherish, because if I lose it, my life is going to be devastated. The third one is that it's a hostile universe. And certainly every time you look at CNN, it looks like a hostile universe, right? So we need to guard, we need to create defenses to protect ourselves from ISIS and earthquakes and, all of the toxins in our food and GMOs. And, it looks like a scary universe when you look at the media. And I think the media is largely responsible for this particular worldview of it's a hostile universe. And the fourth one is I'm all alone, that, I'm by myself in a hostile universe where uncertainty is unsafe and I can't handle losing what I cherish. Well, no wonder we're afraid. But the Caros have a very different view. And I had just written about this, so it was so wonderful to see that it actually is already happening. It's not just a concept. When I wrote about it, it was just a concept. And my concept was, what if we flip these 4 fearful assumptions around into what I call the 4 courage-cultivating truths, by sort of tuning into their opposite? What if it's actually more true that uncertainty is the gateway to possibility? That if we don't know what the future holds, anything could happen. If we're walking into the mystery, then we could have a spontaneous remission from cancer. Like, how exciting is that? And maybe instead of we can't handle losing what we cherish, maybe loss is natural and can lead to growth. And every one of us can think of a time where we lost something we cherished. And we can see how our souls grew, how we became stronger and more resilient. and maybe even how we were broken open into that tender, vulnerable place of the heart, where we found that we were more able to live beyond the ego, or the protective personality, as Sue Morter likes to call it. I love that, the protective personality. And that by being broken open into that vulnerability of the heart, that we're able to make choices from a more soulful place because of loss. The third and the fourth courage-cultivating truths are that instead of it's a hostile universe, it's a purposeful universe. That on some level, everything's happening for a greater purpose. And the last one is, instead of I'm all alone, we are all one. And, many of the great wisdom traditions and religions and the mystical teachings are talking about this interconnectedness of all things. Now science is catching up with things like quantum entanglement, where, what if we're all one in a purposeful universe where everything happens for a reason, where uncertainty is the gateway to possibility and loss is natural and leads to growth. It's sort of, you can even feel the way it feels in your body when you hear that compared to the first worldview. It's just significantly more expansive.
Lissa, you're talking about ways to cultivate courage, and in your book you provide exercises. Is there one that you can share with our listeners that they can try at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, thefearcurebook.com, the website, thefearcurebook.com, has a lot of guided meditations that I did with Karen Drucker that are exercises themselves to bring people into the relaxation response. So these can be used anytime, especially if you're noticing like, wow, I'm feeling really afraid about something, or I'm really triggered, my stress response is going off. You can literally just put on one of these free downloads. It's almost 2 hours worth of guided meditation. And that is guaranteed to put your nervous system into the relaxation response. So various forms of meditation are a great way to do that. One of the ones that I particularly like, and I can sort of lead people through it here, is what I call the I accept meditation. And so much of our stress comes from resisting what is. Like, you're in love with the guy who doesn't love you back. Well, that sucks, right? And you're afraid that you're not going to get what you want. And that triggers a stress response. But the reality is, if he's not in love with you, he's not in love with you. And we notice all the ways the mind will try to, flip around and try to make what's true untrue, and try to manipulate and control and get what you want. But there's something really peaceful about just accepting what is. And it's not about being passive. It's not about doing nothing. Because what often happens is when we kind of surrender and let go into that place of acceptance, then we're often guided into inspired action that might drive us to do something active, but it's not coming from that, I've got to get what I want, or I've got to protect what I cherish, or I've got to avoid uncertainty at all costs. It comes from more intuitive guidance, and it comes from a very peaceful place. So that, an I accept meditation, one of the great examples of this, I wrote about her in the Fear Cure, is Chris Carr was 32 when she was diagnosed with an untreatable stage 4 cancer. And for 10 years, Chris is a celebrity now, raw foods teacher and amazing, health buff. And she's had stage 4 cancer for, I think, 12 years now. But for 10 years, she was fighting her cancer, like resisting her cancer with raw foods and meditation, yoga, and all these practices. And after 10 years, she finally realized, you know what, I'm done fighting. I'm not going to keep, fighting my cancer. I've been on this journey of accepting what is, and I'm going to stop resisting my cancer. I'm going to start accepting my cancer. And she would do this meditation that was just sitting and saying, I accept, I accept. I accept what I don't like. I accept my cancer. I accept that the guy doesn't love me. I accept whatever. I accept all the things that are hard to accept. I just accept. And for the first time after 10 years of her tumors not getting better but not going, not changing, they were stable for 10 years. After a year of an acceptance meditation, her tumors are half their size. I find that shocking and beautiful. That simply by noticing where we're resisting what is and shifting into an acceptance of what is, then something starts to loosen, and it opens the gateway to miracles. And the book I'm writing right now is all about the miracles that can happen in the wake of moving beyond letting fear make your decisions, letting your soul take the wheel of the car of you, and letting that intuitive part of you, that heartful part of you, choose how to live.
The book is The Fear Cure, Cultivating Courage as Medicine for the Body, Mind, and Soul by Dr. Lissa Rankin. If you'd like to get more information about Lissa, you can visit her website, lissarankin.com. Lissa, in about 30 seconds or less, what would you like to leave our listeners with?
Oh, I would love to leave you all with that peaceful feeling in your heart that comes with really trusting that there's another part of you that can protect you more than your fear, that you can trust following your heart, listening to your intuitive guidance, and trusting your soul.
Lissa, thank you so much for being here with us today. I think that this is a wonderful reminder of what we're actually doing to ourselves. As you said, every time we have a stressed or fearful thought, we trigger a response that turns off our body's natural healing mechanisms, and we are literally making ourselves sick. So thank you for this important information and for being here to share it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for being with me and all of you who are listening. I hold you in my heart. Blessings to you all.
We'll be right back. Hi, this is Joan Herman, host of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Did you know that Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox? Every month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide information to educate, inspire, and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. Check out a copy of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life 24/7. Visit cyacyl.com and be sure to tell your friends. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.